money on the table. It's just fundamentally wrong. Yes, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Jim. I've got a comment. First of all, one of the things we need to be aware of, I think, was a while back, as you recall, the trash collection fee. They used to be paid for by our taxes, and now we get to pay for that separately. So that was a tax increase.
It was.
Sheltered. The other thing I'd like you to address is this arena thing. I'm very concerned, being a resident of the north end out there, as to the traffic congestion and trying to get out, even to 264 with that situation. What is the scope of that, and where is that going to go, do you think?
I'll give you two.
And relative to the city's push on it, getting on and off the freeway traffic congestion.
Right. There's two pieces. The path that we're on today is the arena project had a minimum time frame that was granted to United States Management, read Eddie Garcia Enterprises, to meet the terms and conditions of that agreement. And that was that they would not borrow more than $170 million. They would provide $30 million of cash equity in the project, and they would provide $10 million of working capital in that 5.3 acre, I believe that's the 5+ acres, less than 6, I think it was 5.3 acres. And within that, and once they constructed that, within those terms, they would receive all of the taxes from the revenue that would be generated from sales transactions that would take place within that 5.3 acre perimeter. They would receive all those revenues to a point to reach a maximum dollar value, which would probably take about 28 to 32 years to do. There was a maximum dollar amount that they would get a rebate, and that one also was to help write down the financing of the 100, to get them basically a 6% supposedly net return on capital. And I'll come back to a little bit of that in a minute. That was, and in return, if they meet that, the city in return would do $79 million worth of public infrastructure to be paid out of that TAP fund, which is money that is raised from tourism industry revenue sources, the room tax, the meal tax, the bed tax. That's how that money was going to come from the tourism. That TAP fund was going to pay for that $79 million. That $79 million on top with some state money was going to build new ramps at Bird Neck and change that whole Bird Neck interchange, and also improve the interchange of Bird Neck and Jimmy Boulevard, and some other improvements to channel that traffic down that way. So there was on-ramps, off-ramp improvements, and structured parking was part of that. And also, so once the minimum time frame had been met, it meant that either party could terminate the agreement by writing a letter. You know, ESG Enterprises could write a letter and say, well, we no longer want to be interested, or the city manager could write a letter to terminate the agreement, but he would need 6 votes of council, which is why I didn't vote to extend the agreement, but because it didn't need a vote to extend, it needed a vote to terminate, unfortunately, but it did. So the agreement was, so what council did on that, the January 3rd meeting, they said, if Eddie Garcia, ESG USM, had not met the terms of the contract, the agreement, I should say, not contract, in terms of the agreement by that date, the city manager was directed to write that letter which would terminate the agreement. Now, so that's a lot of motivation, because now at least council voted to say, however, I suspect if you showed up on March the 6th and said we're almost there, they'd grant an extension probably, but nonetheless, that's where we stand. Now where USM is, like they are, is they're now out there trying to now meet those terms. You probably heard rumors on the street just like I have. Obviously, I'm not someone they're talking to now, even though I did vote for the December agreement, because I didn't vote to modify the terms. I said I'll live by the terms I voted for, but I'm not modifying at all. I think negotiations begin with no, so clearly when we said no, now they're trying to find a way to find the people that they can meet that agreement. I think that they will work very hard. I think Andrea will work. I like Andrea Kilmer. She's like, Andrea, excuse me, I called her by the wrong name. I like Andrea a lot, Kilmer, a lot. I think she's a smart businesswoman. I think that there's a way to find the business people with the right internal arrangements that they make to make that deal work. They're going to try to show up before the 7th of March and meet that agreement. Whether they will or not, I don't know, but I think if I was a betting person, I think they want to recoup their $15 to $20 million they've already spent trying to get here. So I think they will find a way to meet the initial agreement. And if they do, I think that Barbara Henley, the vice mayor, and myself should be applauded for keeping them from modifying it, because it means it just shows you that when you stand your ground, people accept it. And as long as they think you'll offer them something better than last, and that's what happens on these partnerships, we just need to say, no, we're not going to do it. And believe me, people will come up with their own money. So we'll see, but that's where we're at. Now, the traffic part, which you asked about, is we're trying to make all the improvements at the Bird Neck interchange, and also to funnel people down 58, to push people down the interstate, and also down people who travel also to parts South Olympic down General Booth. But their average attendance that they're looking for is about 7,500. They said would be their average event attendance. That's probably right. You look at the market analysis and ticket prices, I'm surprised they can make it work personally, but they believe they can. But that's the traffic pattern that they're working on, is those improvements is off at the interchange to handle more traffic.
What's our liability if that fails?
Good question. We have no liability whatsoever for the bond, the mortgage, or whatever financial arrangement is. The taxpayers are not obligated to step in. Now that has a cost. Now the cost is for them to, this is why it took 9 votes, because we had to subordinate that 5.5 acres of public land, we had to subordinate that to whoever the lender is. What does that mean? In the event that they default and someone steps in to get that, they now own the land too. The public no longer owns that 5.5 acres. The lease is no longer there, and it actually belongs to it in bankruptcy. Now it's like, ooh, that's pretty tough. That's why it took 9 votes. The other part of that is in that agreement, which is why I was so important about the amount of equity, because the more the equity is in the property, the less likely the people are to walk away, because that's like the down payment on a house, right? So they were wanting to offer this no money down deal. That's why we said no to that. So the $30 million equity, and the longer they own it, the more equity they have. So that's the gauge not to default. But in the event of default, the city has first rights to cure the default. So we could step in and then acquire it at then the fair market value. I personally have said I will never, if I was on council, I would never do that. I went into this deal knowing that if it went under, someone else is going to own the property. But they own the property relative to the terms of the agreement nonetheless. Even though they own the land, they're still subject to the overall uses of the lease of the property. They also inherit that legal obligation as well. That isn't voided by the bankruptcy, but we do lose the property. So we do have that risk, and I don't want to minimize that risk, but I think in light of their down payment and their other stuff, their cost, I think they would be loath to walk away. And I think if you look at it, their whole deal, I think ultimately is to try to make that so successful that they can then resell it, and by their performance, make the money and get out from underneath the long-term obligation. That's my gut. It's the only reason why I would go in there for a 6% return in the early years, if I really felt this thing was going to do very well, and I could then market that and sell that margin, growth margin, and get out. I would guess, I don't know that would be my strategy if I was doing the deal. Yes?
How many people on the council do you believe truly understand all these ramifications?
Well, I don't know about understanding. I can tell you the city attorney did a very good job of making it very clear at every step of the process what the issues are. And the bond counsel that we brought in likewise was making it very clear what these situations were. So I will not begin to judge what they did or didn't understand. All I would know is they could not have made it more clear what we were buying into, and because I had a lot of questions in the executive sessions, you can imagine, to make sure that what was the risk, what's the probability of that risk,
What's the potential benefit?
Many people mentioned and have mentioned that it would be much cheap, if the government could build that cheaper, so why are we building it? Well, that's because we can borrow for less. But the point is, why are we in that business, and why would we want to use our limited debt capacity for that purpose? We have a $500 million backlog in roads. I want to build roads. If you ask me, I want to build roads, and I want to have a smart strategy, not the one that was proposed, but a smart strategy how we're going to address flooding issues. But our number one issue is always public safety. And flooding is integral to people's public safety of their most valuable asset, their home. So first and foremost in this budget cycle, we need to be making sure that we are addressing the maintenance periodicity, and we need to be seeing how quickly, within reason, can we bring the existing stormwater system up to its like-new performance capacity. And then, because you can't maintain what you have while you're building new stuff, right? So we first need to get stuff properly maintained, and then we need to talk about what's the level of flood protection that the public should pay for, and what must be absorbed by the individual in terms of either private insurance or taking the personal risk of loss of property. The public collectively cannot afford to buy people 100% insurance against flood risk. It's just not achievable nor realistic. But what is that level and how we go about paying for it is a public discussion item. And my belief, it can't be done without going to referendum and asking the public, because it's a significant amount of borrowed capital, and you should get a chance to decide, do you want to buy down that risk and pay the cost of doing so? That's a choice all of us should get to make. It shouldn't be just 11 people making it. That's my
But the
opinion.
city historically takes the shortcut, at least in my experience. The shortcut in making the repair that they're responsible for, because it affects, the bottom line, rather than fixing something so that it isn't going to break down or that it will operate optimally. They take the less costly answer.
I think the city staff, in fairness to them, worked, the city's budget is 65% payroll, is labor. It's another $150 million of debt service. So I think when the people come out in those departments, they're good people, you've met them, I think they really want to do a good job. And when someone
But
says,
they're hindered.
well, hindered in part, because I only know this much, they would come and say, people want me to do this repair, this pothole. I want you to do the repair on this pothole that will last 15 years. That has X cost. Well, I looked at all the potholes, that's not possible. So like you would do in your driveway of your house, you'd say, oh, I got this thing. Am I going to have the guy come out and make the big cut and put the rebar and make a, no, you're going to say, oh, I'm going to go down to Home Depot, get the Quikrete, throw something in there because the cost is too high. Well, our city employees are making those same types of choices, and they are good choices. And the consequence of, do I deal with a little bit, a lot? Because if you want to have, if you want Disney World level maintenance, you can go to Disney World Magic Kingdom, it never looks like it's a day old. Well, it's $105 a day to go there. So I think we realize we can't afford the level of quality that we want all the time because it's just unobtainium. But now the question is, are we doing the best value all the time? And then if we can't, what's money going to that we could stop, that could move into here and to put into things that we value? And that's the first discussion we need to be having. So maybe the interest groups come down there and say, I want my $535,000 for this. I want my per capita income payment to do this good thing. And that nonprofit list just grows, right? And then so all these things, are 11 people who, I don't care about getting fired. I think sometimes if you do your job, you probably will get fired because you're going to make a lot of people unhappy. But that's just the nature of the beast, I think. But the budget reflects trying to make everybody happy, which means everybody pays more and everything gets done to some level, but less than what really needs to be done. So we do a disservice to the really core functions, which is why we're not building down that $500 million backlog in roads. Because we decide we'd rather give $1 million for a crosswalk for subsidized apartments at Town Center, or we're going to give them $1.5 million for a plaza, and no one says, well, how many roads could we fix? What's our road look? That never gets debated. And I'll give you one more example that epitomizes poor decision making. say you're at home, and someone says, one of your kids walks up, or older kid looking, they say, oh, God, I need help getting down payment on my house. I'm sure maybe some of you have heard that story, maybe. But anyway, so they said, gosh, I need $20,000. And so you look at your bank account and say, well, I got $50,000 in my savings account. And I just think I can make that work. No, what you would sit down and say, well, wait a minute, what are all my liabilities that I have? And say, can I really, because that money wasn't just sitting there for no reason. So here the school board decides, so they take now move this, like I say, spending money like it's your own. So the school board decides that they no longer need the adult education center. And they no longer need the adult education center because the Renaissance Center, that's all really a name for reform school, when they built it, for $65 million is underutilized. Now, it's underutilized because the school administration won't let teachers send anyone there, because before you can send someone there who's disrupting your class and being I'll be polite here, not being the best compliant student in the classroom, you have to go through this torturous juvenile court process that takes you half the school year before they can get them out of your classroom so you can get back to teaching with kids who want to learn. So the teachers, rightfully so, look at that incentive and say, it's easier to deal with the person with that process, so they stay in your classroom, so no one goes there. So now the $65 million building that you built, saying you're meeting the needs of students, now turns into office space and adult learning center, and they build a bigger parking lot. This is the real story. You won't read that in the paper. But so now they're selling their building because it's surplus. Give them good credit for that. They're not trying to hang on to it like all their other school properties they hang on to and expand their office again. But so they're selling it. So little others, and they go look at, oh, we have a client, the city. So the city says, yeah, we could buy this because that would help us get the rescue squad out of their Class A office space, blah, blah, blah. And when we buy it for $3.5 million, we just can't move it like it is. It's another $7.5 million to bring it up to what we want. So the point I made was when this opportunity first came forward, I said, why are we doing these things one-on-one? We should be addressing this in the budget process. And how do we know that of all our priorities, how is this our highest priority for the next $7.5 million? Well, it's going to help us improve and get more people to volunteer for the rescue squad. But when we look at our metrics, it isn't an area where we have a lot of risk. Now, would it be nicer? I'm the first person who said yes. But do we have needs that are high risk that aren't met? Yes. So now you're going to come in the budget process and say, we need more money. Well, yeah, because you spent $7.5 million in February that you shouldn't have spent because it was a lower priority than this. This is the lack of fiscal discipline and pandering that you cannot afford. You don't do it at home, and we shouldn't be doing it at City Hall. I don't do it where I work. We go and look and say, what's everything on the list? Let's have a debate and make sure that this is the next highest priority of all our stuff. That doesn't even come in the package. We don't even get the top 10 unfunded, so that we're even reminded of other bills we have. I'm sure the people in Windsor Woods would love to have $7.5 million of flood maintenance being done, and certainly probably delivers more value, added value, than that does. But that's not the decision that we made. So now we spent $3.5. That's what you see. But then the budget, they're going to say, well, because council bought this, you now need to give us this. We're taking away options from the public to know. This is inherently bad decision making. Yes, Robert, I'll come to you next.
John, I was coming off the Woodstock exit this morning on my way here, and of course they're working on the high-rise steel for the Housing Resource Center, which is homeless shelter. So, and I also looked at the CIP, and that whole Cleveland Street is still on the books being planned for a 4-lane all the way to town center, which was predicated on a light rail station. Now that's not going to happen. Why is this SGA still going forward? My question.
Well, because at least 9 people wanted to continue. I mean, I raised the question. I think the SGA concept was bankrupt from the start. it was predicated, independent of light rail, it was predicated, if you read the reports, I mean, I can't make this stuff up, you can go read it. It was predicated that it can only work if there is substantial public